What is going on, everybody? What was today? Thursday? Happy Thursday. My goodness, it's been one of those weeks. And in today's video, guys, we're going to discuss why I prefer to use the VWAP bands instead of just your traditional VWAP, which you see on this side of my screen. And I use this in accordance with the MACD as well. I know a lot of people like to say that the MACD is not accurate or, is still kind of a waste of time. But for the sake of this video, I want to show you guys why I prefer to use the 5 bands instead of the single VWAP. Now, mind you, this is personal preference, but I'm showing this to you on the 5-minute chart right here. But I want to look at the market from historical context for a bit. So if we focus on the bottom left-hand side of your screen here, this is the daily chart. And the daily chart shows us that we've been in much of a consolidation range and the market wanted to go one way or the other. So here's the range we've been in, pretty straightforward to see. But this candle is as of today, so let's plot this out as if it was this morning. We've had 1, 2, 3, 4 inside days. And as the market opened this morning, we started to put in a red candle. And this is why I like to use the candle and have the daily chart pulled up on my screen, because when we're putting in a red candle and it's a clear red candle, meaning that it would be impossible to retrace the entire day given the amount of time that is left in the trading session. So this candle was clearly strong enough to show that we were headed in a um, bearish direction. But if we look at the daily chart, we have this massive imbalance right here that I believe the market would want to rebalance. And further, we have this fair value gap inside of a fair value gap. So this will 100% likely get rated if I had to guess. And I'm confident in that. And that was included in my bias for this morning. Now, mind you, when we're looking at this and we see we have these large imbalances, we know that the market is going to have somewhat of a stronger trend to it. So I was watching that. But also, we had Jerome Powell speaking today. And if we've been looking at the market from a strict daily candle, we had 1, 2, 3-ish, 3 to 4 days of all-time highs. And with Jerome Powell coming to the helm, I figured that after such a strong day, such a strong few days, we would start to see somewhat of a pullback in the market with Powell kind of pulling everything back and bringing us into a reality check. So for the sake of today's video, let's go back to how these VWAP bands can be used in accordance with what your thesis is for the day. So when I'm confident that we're putting in a bearish trend, I want to watch the main VWAP, which is where price is traded in the middle, and then watch the subsequent deviations below. So the market in itself is all based off of statistics, and you'll hear a lot of some of the bigger traders talk about statistical analysis and the likelihood of something happened, as well as the likelihood of pattern returning, something along those lines. So they use statistics to back that up. So the yellow line represents the volume weighted average price. The bar below and the bar above represent one standard deviation from that price. The second on the outer bands would represent 2 standard deviations. So what we notice is we have somewhat of a ping pong effect within these bands, roughly 1, 2, 3, 4 instances where it actually traded below the bands, but the price quickly rebalanced itself. Now, mind you, this is on the 5-minute chart. I use this on the 1-minute chart as well. However, looking at this, okay, we come into the market and we have bearish trend already. And what do we notice? That right up here, we have one standard deviation being respected. We actually had it off to the left of that as well, multiple times. So looking at this, with already 2 solid rejections, I'm thinking that we're going to be watching these bands and potentially VWAP as resistance. And looking at the yellow VWAP itself, that is very evident that price could not trade above and hold above that volume weighted average price. So let's look at this from the 1-minute section. And as we pull up the 1-minute chart, this is the overnight session, but let's go back to the regular trading day. As we're looking at this price here, we notice that here's our pre-market test of the above bands. Okay, so now we have established resistance. So as we push back down, we see that we respect two standard deviations to the bottom. So that's interesting to think about. We hit the bottom support on two standard deviations all the way down, but we never break above and hold above VWAP to retest the standard deviation above, showing that we're switching to a bullish trend. So with that coupled with our thesis, we can now say, okay, price is going to retract. So although we had a day that was very bearish, we can see that using these VWAP bands reinforces that we are still in a bearish trend. Now, would this stick to be bullish would be we had a closing above here and a hold above VWAP. Nope. Look back here. Same thing happened. Sold off. Every time we got above VWAP, we sold off. So the trend is our friend. And I like to use the VWAP bands to give me another idea of where those standard deviations in price are and where we can anticipate to see somewhat of a bounce or a shift in the trend based off of those standard deviations. So that is why I like to use those bands coupled with my own thesis to further back up support and resistance or supply and demand. So if you want to use the supply and demand theory, let's just draw that out using some boxes here. So we're going to draw a box here with what could potentially be support. Now, mind you, this isn't a perfect science and this is all hindsight. However, you'll notice that we had somewhat of a drop, a basing candle with a rally. So we can assume that you're going to have some sort of supply and demand here. And as it came back in, we did break back into it and it acted as support fairly well throughout the day until we started to head into the afternoon session around 3 o'clock, where that actually served as resistance going forward. So does this continue the trend for what could be another red day tomorrow? Is certainly opening up to be one, as you'll see right here. But do we rebalance this on the daily chart? That's quite a sell-off and a push down. But in NQ, anything is possible, right? So guys, that is how I use supply and demand coupled with my VWAP bands to give me a solid read on the market and a solid picture of the market. So by all means, please comment down below if this was helpful. Share with your friends. If you could, subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks.